So it goes to my second question. This has been a hot topic, still a hot topic right now, Uncle D, and I know you support this movement, the passport first.
Mhm.
Passport first. Is it really that bad there in America right now? Like the modern westernized women? That's why these brothers just decided to leave the country and start a new life in another country.
It's actually worse, because it's only so much we can say to describe it. Imagine living this existence, and as far as the baby deletion problem, over the past, since 1971, African American women have deleted over 20 million uh, boys, or boys and girls, baby children. Um, there's only 43 million African Americans in the country. So imagine 20 million being deleted before they were born over the last, 50 years, 52 years. And you can see that that's a lot. There are more children deleted, more babies deleted in New York City than born. Let me say more black babies deleted than born in New York City every year. And so what that lets you know is that these women are not, they're getting pregnant and they're using um, the baby deletion process as a means of birth control, which lets you know that they're having a lot of sex, oftentimes out of wedlock. And so that should let you know it goes to the mindset of the women. You got promiscuous women who have no regard for human life. And these are the women that we are forced to be paired with here in the United States. Just imagine that mentality. I am Christian. I I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I've always been Christian. I love the Lord. Um, and I can see evil when it's apparent. And that's evil, period. And I don't care how people try to assuage it, or talk about it. It's evil. You don't, that's just evil. The promiscuity, the, the baby deletions, that's going to lead, that opens the door for so much more to come in, so many more demons to enter into your life. And so good black men, the law abiding black men who have fought and died for this country, who work every day, the blue collar men, the ones like myself who rise up and pull themselves up through education. We want a better quality of women, not only to marry, but also to raise our children, you see? And that's the other thing that's very important. See, black men have been very loyal to black women in the United States. What do I mean by that? As you can imagine, having the color restrictions or the racism where you can only live in one neighborhood, and this went on for a while. It wasn't a lot of black men dating out. You see, it wasn't a lot of black men dating white women up until probably the 1960s. But white men and men of other races have always had access to black women. You see, so it wasn't black men dating out. It was, matter of fact, the first case in the Supreme Court of the United States was a black woman who wanted to marry a white man. So it wasn't like a black man was trying to marry a white woman and he fought all the way up through the Supreme Court. It was a black woman who wanted to marry a white man. And so they fought all the way through. So it's always been them. But black men haven't had their options because we wanted to stay loyal. And, we wanted to be good men. We want to have children. But at a certain point, this new generation of young men said, no, I'm not doing it, because they were raised by the women who had the baby deletions. They were raised by the women who were promiscuous. They were raised by these women who were loud and belligerent and told that it was okay for them to do that. And see, there's nobody that is willing to uh, put black American women in their place. For instance, when you go to your elders' homes, there's a certain way you have to conduct yourself because that's what's required in your culture. It's the same thing in many of these other cultures. But here in the United States, the female elders, they're at the club or the discotheque with the daughters and the granddaughters. They're all out there, you know. There's nobody saying, hey, you got to tone that down. We used to have that. We used to call those type of women big mama, and a representation of that is Tyler Perry's. Have you ever seen I don't know if you know who Tyler Perry is, but he's a famous black. He's a black like movie producer, and he has a bunch of these films about black life. He dresses up in a dress. He's a big man, and he pretends to be one of these older women who were born around 1905, 1910, and he plays Madeir, which is a term of endearment for these older grandmothers who used to be around. They cooked, they cleaned, they were very traditional, they took care of their families. But many of them died off by the 1990s. And so now what you have is a whole bunch of hot girl grandmas. You see what I mean? They're 50 years old. They still out there getting, you know, they're getting it in. And there's nobody there to regulate these young women and be an example and say, hey, put your clothes on, calm down, act like a wife, be a mother. And so now they've just gone crazy. So the brothers are now going overseas. They said, no, we not, I don't care race, loyalty, my butt. We want good women to raise our children. We want good women to marry, good women who know how to keep a house peaceful. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that Filipinos can be feisty. I've heard, okay? I know that Latino women and women of other races can be feisty, but and you know, nobody's perfect. But what I'm saying is those are the sort of things that you would expect. What you don't expect is the violence. For instance, did you know that here in the United States, the lovely ladies are just as violent towards men as the men are towards women? They're more likely to shoot you. You see, I can pull some statistics up. You know, the lovely ladies unalive damn near as many men as the men unalive them. You see what I mean? And that just goes to show how violent they've become. And that's the problem. And nobody wants to live. You think after I come home from being in court all day, fussing with the judge, you know, and trying to get my client to understand, you gonna go to jail forever. You, that I want to come home and argue with a wife. No, a man wants peace. All men want peace. And the problem is, it's not just black women. They're at the tip of the spear, so to speak. But all American women are pretty much the same way. They've lost their ability to be wives and being peaceful homemakers. They think there's something wrong with that. So yeah, that's why the brothers are traveling overseas, and I understand, and I support it because at the end of the day, I want them to be happy. Because guess what happens? I'm gonna say it like this: if you got a bunch of angry men in the society walking around unhappy, who do you think they're gonna take it out on? Other men. So it's dangerous to have a bunch of unhappy men, white, black. 63% of men under the age of 30 here in the United States, they aren't even looking to date. They don't even want to go out on a date. They don't want to go to have coffee with you. They just want to stay home, play their video games, and watch porn. That's pretty much what they're doing. They pacify themselves. They're barely working. They're not going to college. They don't go to church. They've separated themselves from these institutions because they're not vested in the society. And the only way you can get them vested is if you get them married and having children, but they don't want to do that because they don't want to be stuck with these type of women. And they also don't want to have to deal with the possibility of divorce, of which 70% of the divorces that are filed are initiated by women. So that lets you know what we're dealing with here in the United States.